Welcome to the Witness Walk channel. My name is David, and I want to thank you for coming on this little walk with me today. This is my first YouTube video, and it looks like we'll probably both be doing something new at the same time. The Bible says that we're to sharpen each other's character, just like we're sharpening a fine steel blade. I think a really good point is probably, for me to start, is probably telling you a little bit about myself. That only makes sense, and it helps you to understand my motives for this YouTube channel, and hopefully you will be able to relate a little bit to my story. I'm usually a pretty private person, and so this whole social media thing, it doesn't come natural to me. I'm a behind-the-scenes dude. When it comes to internet as a whole, I just kind of jump in and get the information I need, and then I jump right on out. I don't really want to hear a person's life story, and I know that you're probably similar. For that reason, this will be the only content for this channel that is about me. I just thought it was a good place to start. I thought that you should probably get to know me a little bit. So, bear with me here, put on your walking shoes, and let's go for a little walk while I tell you a bit about myself, okay? I grew up the youngest of 6 kids in a West Coast family. And my mother and father, they were very loving, very good providers, good parents. But after having 12 kids, they had 12, that's right, and 6 of them died either at birth or slightly thereafter. And then you couple that with the stress of raising me and my 5 other siblings. I'm sure that added to it. My family as a whole, and certainly my parents, were not without problems, and marital problems, of course, are pretty common, especially when you're dealing with those kind of stressors. The good thing about it is I'll have 6 brothers and sisters. I don't know what flavor, but I will have 6 brothers and sisters in heaven. And I'm really excited for that. And I've got 6 or 5 siblings, 6 counting me, here on this earth now. And that's also very important to me. From about the time I was 13 years old, I had slowly learned to become a professional pain in the butt for, I'm sure, my 5 siblings that were older than me, all of them, and they had to take care of me. And also my parents, who had been through what I just described. Teenagers, they need a lot of guidance, and being the youngest one, I'm sure I was a full-time job for all of them. But I ended up being like the caboose, I guess you could call it, on the train wreck that we were headed for, because my family was that typical Catholic, Italian, Irish family living the American dream. 1 hour we looked like saints at Mass, and the rest of the week I don't really think anybody could tell the difference between us and non-believers. You see, my family was living the same sinful lifestyle that a lot of families live, and it's been going on since the days of Noah. God told us that in His Word, and He said that there was nothing new under the sun. And He was certainly right. My family and I, we had forgotten that we were wonderfully made for a purpose, and that purpose was to serve Him. And a very big part of that is sharing the good news of the gospel with others. That destructive lifestyle went on in my life for many years, and God began to grab my heart when I was about 30. Looking back, I think it was, He tried much earlier. He's probably always tried. But I was too busy trying to fill that empty void inside of us, the one we have, and with anything and everything besides God. At that point, I had mostly just invested in the art of deception. I was trying to fool people because, after all, what's really important is what people think of you, not what God knows you are, right? I'd become a people pleaser, not a God pleaser. And the next few years, God slowly changed my heart. The first thing I noticed that he started to change in me was my mouth. I had kind of one of what you'd call a sailor mouth. It was pretty filthy at times. And along with that, blasphemy, using God's name in vain. And those are serious crimes against your Creator. And about the age of 33, he made me examine my motives for having personal relationships. And that was because about a year later, he gypped my future wife by introducing me to her. We met at a skating rink, and she was that beautiful angel floating around there on skates, just trying to get out of the way of me running into her. And I was the madman on rollerblades, just trying to do crazy tricks. We have a wonderful marriage. God is good, and Christ Himself is the only thing in my life that is more important than my wife, and I'm grateful for that. So we got married, and you know the story. We had a couple of boys, one of which got hurt by this, and our fairy tale-like lifestyle was forever changed. I'm not saying it was bad. I'm just saying it was different, and in some ways it was bad. In some ways it was hurtful. And it still is to this day. Wounds are a deep thing, and a lot of people carry them, and there's only one that can remove them. And but it's true. What the world meant for bad, God truly did mean for good, and I can see blessings in what happened to my oldest son, because from that point on, I began to look at the world differently. God showed us that this is a broken, dark place. During this hard time, my priorities were changed in so many ways. But one of them was God gave me a dream. And I know sometimes visions are portrayed by people falsely, but I know there's real ones too, and that's biblical. And mine was definitely real. Well, that vision changed my life forever. I would like to share that because it's the reason we're walking together today. I went into this vision looking at the backside of a young man. And I would say that young man was probably in his early 20s, maybe mid. He had a really nice, dark, like business suit and a white dress shirt. And as I found out later when I went around to the front of him, he was wearing also a nice tie. And he was speaking to this really big crowd. This crowd was so big that I could not see any walls in the room. I couldn't see the back wall, the side walls. All I saw was people. And I don't know if you're familiar with the Norman Rockwell painting, but it was like that. What it was everybody was in folding chairs, and the first 10 rows I could see in great detail. The first 2 rows, I could tell you how many pimples were on the guy's nose in front of me. I knew that I knew them all. They looked familiar to me, but I could not recognize a single one of them. I couldn't recall them. I can't recall them to this day. But I knew I was, there with people I knew. And as it went further out, it almost looked like it rose up, like you'd rise up into a bleacher, but it was just the room was so big and there was just people there and I couldn't see walls. And as it got further back, the people got distorted until all the way in the back, it was just the silhouette of shoulders and a little blurry dot for their head. So at this time, I started to pan around the front of this younger gentleman, and he was pretty good looking, if I might say so myself. And as I went around him, I could start to see behind him, and it occurred to me that he was at a funeral. And there was a beautiful casket behind him. It was like an oak high gloss wood type finish with like gold or brass type handles and hardware. It was closed, and as I went around to this gentleman speaking at this podium, the podium, like I said, it was also a wonderful wood grain podium, and it had one of those old-fashioned type of telescopic chrome microphones in front of it. And I got around there, and this young man was giving a eulogy. And when I looked at him, I looked at his face, it occurred to me that I was giving a eulogy. And even more so, that I was giving my own eulogy. And in fact, it was my funeral that I was at. Well, at that time, the little voice inside of me, God, he spoke to me. He said, David, don't worry. I'm not trying to tell you you're going to die young. That's not what this is about. This is about what will matter for eternity, what will matter when you're gone. And you know how you always wonder if when you die, if people will remember you, if you'll leave anything lasting, if you'll be loved. And that's what this was about. And so I was talking to this crowd, and I asked two questions, and then I made a little statement. And the first question was, will everybody that knew David please stand up? And I remember how great it felt that there was a roar, kind of like what I've seen on TV, like in a professional football game, a roar in the bleachers of everybody, all those people standing up at the same time. That's what it felt like. And I remember it felt really good to have confirmation that that many people would come and they would share my celebration of life with me. I was important to them enough to do that. And then what followed is I said, will everybody that knew that Dave was a Christian and that he had a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, will everybody that knew that about him, will you please sit down? And I remember there was a sound, but it wasn't near as big as the sound that when everybody stood up. It was about a 40% of that sound. And I remember that brought me great sorrow. And the next thing that I said, I will never forget for the rest of my life. I said, for those of you left standing, I'm sorry I let you down. And then God pulled me out of that vision. He just, pulled me back into my skin, if you will. For the last 25 years, I have been sharing the good news of the gospel. I have learned that most people do not respond well to force-feeding type methods of evangelism. The Bible says milk before meat. It's simple, okay? You don't feed a baby a steak. If you do, you're going to look silly, and the baby, it's not going to go well for the baby, okay? And that's why if you're a new creation, if you have given your life to Christ, you already know almost everything you need to know to share the gospel. I hope you will consider coming on another walk with me soon. And so if you'll subscribe to this channel, it'll help it grow. And I want it to grow, and I need you to help me build it through comments in the comment section. I want to know how you overcame fears if you're already evangelizing. What fears you had and what works for you. Some tools that you've gathered in your toolbox along the way in that process. So until we walk again, I'd just like you to remember, in order to walk with Christ, you first got to move your own feet.